Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, thank you for joining today. Uh, Last week we had Pritama Gorangi Mataji taking this session, and she spoke on Prabhupada. Does anyone recall any of the things that were mentioned in last class? Any points?
Yeah, I only want to compliment Priya Mataji.
Hmm.
She told us the story very well, and it was very inspiring. Although we knew a bit about it, but still she explained so well. It was really nice. Thank you. Mataji.
Right. Anyone else would like to say anything or recall any of the points that were mentioned in the class?
Uh,
Hare Krishna, Somnath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. After a long time, I am attending the class because last few months I did not attend proper. So from today, we will continue joining our class. So I'm really happy to see you all guys.
We are also very happy to have you back. And,
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so today we'll be discussing from chapter 4, verse 3 onwards. This chapter is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. So I'll share my screen and then we'll see what we actually covered the first two verses of this chapter already, and we're supposed to start with verse number 3. Before that, we'll say prayers. So I'll just share my screen again and we'll just say prayers first. So let's chant. Om Jnanatimirandhasya
Timradasya
Jnananjana Shalakaya
Anjanashalatkaya
Chakshurunmilitam Yena
Shururmilitam Yena
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam
Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam
Stapitam Yena Bhutale
Stapitam Yena Bhutale
Swayam Rupaha Kadamayam
Svayam Rupam Kadamayyam
Dati Swapadantikam
Dadati Papadatikam
Vandeham Shri Guruha
Vandeham Shri Guru
Shri Yutapadakamalam
Shri Swapadakamalam
Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha
Gurun Vaishnavamscha
Shri Rupam Sagrajatam
Shri Rupam Sagrajatam
Padana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam
Raghunatham Tam Vitam Sativam
Sadvaitam Savadhutam
Adavaitam Savadhutam
Haritana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam
Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam
Shri Radha Krishna Padan
Shri Radha Krishna Padam
Sahagana Lalita
Sahagana Lalitam
Shri Visakha
Shri Vishakham Vitamja
He Krishna Karuna Sindho
He Krishna Karuna Sindhu
Madhu Jagatpate
Madhumate Jagannate
Kesha Gopika Kanta
Gopesha Gopika Kanta
Radha Kanta Namostate
Radha Kanta Namaste
तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी
सप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी
राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी
राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी
वृषभानुसुते देवी
वृषभानुसुते देवी
नमामि हरिप्रिये
प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये
पञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च
पाञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च
सिन्धुभ्य एव च
कृपा सिन्धुभवेव च
गीतानां पावनेभ्यो
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो
पापिभ्यो
भवेभ्यो नमो नमः
वैष्णवेभ्यो
सर्वेभ्यो नमो नमः।
श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य
जय श्री कृष्ण
चैतन्य
चैतन्य
प्रभु नित्यानन्द
प्रभु
नित्यानन्द
नित्यानंद
अद्वैत
श्री अद्वैत गदाधर
आदिगौरभक्तवृन्द
श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त
श्रीवासवृन्द
हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्णा
कृष्ण हरे हरे
कृष्ण कृष्ण
कृष्ण
हरे
हरे राम
हरे
हरे राम
राम हरे राम
राम राम हरे हरे
राम राम
हरे
हरे हरे
हरे।
Hare Krishna. So we'll be discussing from chapter 4, verse number 3. So before this verse, what we'll do is we'll read the translation of the previous two verses. So verse number 1 and 2. So this verse number 1. Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvān, and Vivasvān instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. So this is verse number 1. Verse number 2. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Then we go to verse number 3. So does anyone recall from these two verses what was spoken when we were discussing these two verses? Any point? The Krishna is saying that he gave this knowledge to the sun god Vivasvān, he gave it in turn to Manu, and then in turn to Ikshvaku. And like that, it's coming down, in a chain. So this is how the chapter begins, transcendental knowledge. Does anyone recall any points from these two verses that we had discussed earlier? No? Okay, so we'll discuss from verse number 3 and then we'll see what Krishna is trying to say here in this chapter. Okay, so we'll recite this verse number 3 from chapter 4. So evayam mayati adya,
एवयं मया तस्य
so evayam mayati adya,
स्वयं मया तस्य
yoga prokta puratanaha,
योगा पुरातनः
bhaktosi me sakha cheti,
भक्तोऽसि सखा चेति
rahasya tad uttamam.
रहस्यैतदुत्तमम्।
So evayam mayati adya,
सैवायं मया तद्य
yoga prokta puratanaha,
योगप्रोक्तपुरातनः
tosi me sakha cheti,
भक्तोऽसि
भक्तोऽसि
मे
सखा चेति
सखातीति
Rahasyami taduttamam.
रहस्य
यम् य
हेतुतदुत्तमम्।
एतदुत्तमम्
Would anyone like to try reciting the verse?
Shall I, Prabhuji?
Yes.
सः एवयं मया तस्य योगा
Saivayam mayate adya.
सः सः
You can, yeah.
सः
Keep on.
एव सः एवयं मया तस्य
Saivayam mayate adya.
सैवायं मया
You can
तस्य
continue. We'll repeat after you.
सः सः एवायं मया तस्य
Saivayam mayate adya.
योगप्रोक्तपुरातनः
Yogaha prokta puratanaha.
भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति
Bhaktosi me sakha cheti.
रहस्यमेतद् उत्तमम्
Rahasyam hi etaduttamam. Would anyone else like to try reciting the verse?
May I try?
Yes. Yes, please.
Sa evayam maya tadya
Saivayam mayate adya.
yoga prokta puratanaha
Yogaha prokta puratanaha.
bhaktosi me sakha cheti
Bhaktosi me sakha cheti.
rahasyam ya itad uttamam.
Rahasyam hi etaduttamam.
Prabhuji, I'll recite.
Yes, please.
The evayam mayatyadhya
Saivayam mayate adya.
yoga prokta puratana
Yogaha
Yoga
prokta
prokta
puratanaha.
tosi me sakacheti
Bhaktosi me sakha cheti.
rahasyam hi etad uttamam.
Rahasyam
rahasyam
hi
ya
etaduttamam.
itad uttamam.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Very nice. Okay, can anyone read the translation?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll do. That very that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science.
Yes. So here there is a very crucial point that Krishna is making to Arjuna. He's saying that this very ancient science, so Krishna first described that how this science was coming down in a reciprocal succession, and he actually first gave it to the sun god Vivasvān, and Vivasvān gave it to Manu, the father of mankind, and then Manu gave it to Ikshvaku. And then like that in a chain, it's coming down from the Supreme Lord himself, who first gave it to the sun god. And since that chain was broken over a period of time, Krishna is now re-establishing that chain, starting by giving this knowledge to Arjuna. And now he's telling why he has chosen Arjuna to be the recipient of this knowledge, why not anyone else. So he's saying, Krishna is saying, this very ancient science is told by me to you because you are my Bhaktosimya Sakha Cheti. So he's saying two things. Bhakta, you are my devotee, and Sakha, you are my friend, and therefore can understand the transcendental mystery of the sign. Rahasyam hi etaduttamam. So this knowledge actually that is coming down is rahasyamai, which means it's mysterious. It cannot be understood. But he is saying that Arjuna, you can understand this. Why? Because you are my devotee. So if one has to understand the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, then one important crucial factor here is that he has to be a devotee. Unless one is a devotee of the Lord, it's not possible to actually understand this ancient science, which actually becomes a mystery if it's not understood by the devotees. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that there are two classes of people in this world always. There are the devotees, the bhaktas, and there are the demoniac people. And there are many commentaries written on the Bhagavad Gita. Even when Prabhupada wrote this commentary, Prabhupada writes in the introduction that someone might question why is there another need of a translation or an edition of the Bhagavad Gita? Why is it needed when there are already so many in the market? So Prabhupada explains because this is coming, as it is in a disciplic succession. And whatever you see otherwise in the market outside, different editions of the Bhagavad Gita, if they are not written by devotees, then surely they are misunderstood. Because here the secret of understanding the science of Bhagavad Gita is actually explained by Krishna himself. That one has to be a devotee to be able to understand this mysterious science. Otherwise, it will not be understood. For the demons, they always reject the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For them, when they try to interpret the Bhagavad Gita, they will take Krishna aside and then interpret the Bhagavad Gita and try to give their own message through the Bhagavad Gita. So it's like sometimes when we, in this world, when we are born, we observe the world around us. We might be, philosophers, and we might try to understand the world in our own way. And just to push across our ideas about what we have understood about this world, they may take the help of Bhagavad Gita and say that, see, the Bhagavad Gita is saying this. But in actuality, Bhagavad Gita may be saying something else. Krishna has a certain intention behind giving this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, and that we will see in the coming verses now that we will be discussing today. What is the mood and intention behind this message of the Bhagavad Gita? So, if one has to understand the real original knowledge that is coming down by Krishna, then one has to accept it in the chain, and one has to be a devotee. Without actually being a devotee, no one can understand the Bhagavad Gita. So what these speculators, commentators who are not devotees, they would do is they keep aside Krishna and then they give their own interpretation of Bhagavad Gita. And then they interpret it in so many different ways. They may say that, this Kurukshetra is not a battlefield, it's actually our body. The five Pandavas are not actually Pandavas, they are like the five senses. So it's not needed for one to actually interpret in their own way. When there is some certain knowledge given, which is very direct, there is no need of interpretation. Mute. Yeah, so there is no need of interpretation when the message is very direct and straightforward. So with Kurukshetra, the land itself, we see it's there here in India, even today. One can visit the place where Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. So there's no need of interpreting and saying that, oh, this Kurukshetra land is not the land, it's actually referring to our body. So they misinterpret it. And then they say, oh, there is no need of Krishna, we are all God. Or, it doesn't really matter who Krishna is, what message he said is more important. So they keep the Supreme Lord aside and then they try and interpret and give their own message through the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, it's like Prabhupada explains in the introduction, it's like licking the bottle of honey from the outside. There's a bottle of honey and it's locked. So you try to lick the outside of the bottle of honey. What is the possibility that actually you'll be ever able to taste honey? There's no possibility, right? Similarly, if we try and read such editions of Bhagavad Gita which are not interpreted by devotees, actually there's no need of interpretation. It's the direct message we just have to, transfer. So, but if we happen to read such edition of Bhagavad Gita which is minus Krishna, then it's like trying to lick the bottle of honey from the outside. The bottle is closed. So you'll never get the understanding, the taste of the nectar or the honey. But when one actually gets the message in its truest form, in the purest form, coming in disciplic succession, as is understood by Arjuna, because Arjuna is a devotee, so coming in the chain of devotees, then one can actually understand this mystery, the science of Bhagavad Gita. So is there a qualification needed for understanding the Bhagavad Gita? Yes, this is the primary qualification. That unless one is a devotee, he will not be able to understand the Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, people, they might be scholars, they might be PhDs in Bhagavad Gita. In the outside world, in the outside circles, they may be very much reputed and they may have a high post, learned. All of these are not qualifications to understand the Bhagavad Gita. So the only primary qualification is that one has to be a devotee. There is a story in this regard. Once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was traveling to South India, and on his South India tour, he came across a Brahmana, outside a temple. And this Brahmana, he was an illiterate. He could not understand, he could not read and write. But the instruction of his spiritual master, the Brahmana's spiritual master, was that you should try and read the Bhagavad Gita every day. So although he was illiterate, he could not read, he could not understand Sanskrit, yet he would just try and read the Bhagavad Gita because his spiritual master, his guru, instructed him to do so. So all these other Brahmanas who were there around him, they saw, oh, this illiterate person, he doesn't even know how to read. Still, he's trying to read. And so they would laugh at him. They will make fun of him. They'll say, what you're trying to read? You are an illiterate person. You don't even know anything. So what sense does it make that you're trying to read Bhagavad Gita? So they would mock him like that. And But this Brahmana, he would continue because it was the instruction of his spiritual master to read Bhagavad Gita every day. So he very faithfully followed that. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this Brahmana, and this Brahmana was actually crying. There were tears coming into his eyes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Why are you crying?" So this Brahmana, he said that uh, actually I'm an illiterate person, I cannot read. But then it's the instruction of my spiritual master to read Bhagavad Gita every day. So I'm trying to read. And whenever I see this picture of Lord Krishna, who is the charioteer of Arjuna, whenever I see that this form of the Lord, uh, it brings tears to my eyes because he is a supreme personality of Godhead and he has accepted this role of the chariot driver, the supreme personality of the Godhead. Now we can imagine a very important person, maybe the Prime Minister of India, how important a position he must have. Uh, but this is not a Prime Minister of a country. This is not, the President of the most important country in the world. This is not the ruler of the whole planet. This is the creator of all the material creation. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. And he has accepted this very humble position of being the charioteer for Arjuna, because Arjuna is his devotee. So he's exchanging loving, relationship with his devotees. And, he's become the driver for Arjuna on this battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this Brahmana said that when I see this, form of the Lord, it brings tears to my eyes. How wonderful the Lord is. Although he is the supreme, the greatest, yet, he's accepted such a humble position. So this brings tears to my eyes. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this from the Brahmana, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that you have actually understood the Bhagavad Gita. So although this Brahmana was outwardly illiterate, he could not read, he could not understand Sanskrit, yet he understood the message of Bhagavad Gita. He could understand the loving reciprocation of the Supreme Lord with his devotees. And that is the most important qualification to understand Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes we are reciting these verses and people say that, oh, you all can recite the verses so nicely, you remember so many verses. All that is good because these are the verses, said by the Supreme Personality. So it's good to learn them, memorize them, and recite them. However, just mere learning the verses or scholarship of the Bhagavad Gita is not the primary qualification. The primary qualification to understand Bhagavad Gita is bhakti, it's devotional service. So that should be the primary focus in our mind, that how we can establish this loving relationship with the Supreme Lord as a devotee. And when that happens, then automatically the message of the Bhagavad Gita will be manifest, to us within the heart. So yes, we do make an attempt to try and read the Bhagavad Gita and understand the message, because it said when Krishna sees that the devotee is trying to understand, read the message of the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedic scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, then Krishna is very much pleased, even if we just try to make an endeavor to read, because Krishna is seeing that, oh, this devotee is trying to understand me. So just by seeing that, Krishna blesses, and then we can actually understand the message. So our effort is undoubtedly important, and it's needed that we put an effort to try and understand this message. At the same time, bhakti is the core, is the important aspect of understanding this message of Bhagavad Gita. Right? So that is what Krishna is saying here, that because you are my devotee as well as my friend, therefore you can understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So there's the continuation of these verses. Prabhuji, you would like to add anything in this verse in particular?
So I think when you mentioned about the bewilderment, of people, how they are not able to understand, they may be scholars, etc. I was just reminded of the Bhagavatam class we heard in Vrindavan, Brahma Vivasvān Leela continuation. So I think the devotee very beautifully, in fact, this is the first time I was actually hearing this perspective, that how, Brahmaji was bewildered, but let's look at the qualification of Lord Brahma. He's not an ordinary personality, and he's someone, whom the demigods prayed to, and they actually went to, the banks of Shir Sagar, and, praying to Lord Vishnu through Purusha Shikta prayers. And it was in Brahma's heart where Lord Krishna transmitted the message that he's going to appear. Brahma is the first person first person born, right? And he's the one who's created everything. So Prabhuji was just mentioning, you're not the richest man, you're not of the of the country or the planet, etc. Not even the creator of the universe. So the creator of the universe, Brahma himself, is an example. That he is someone who has seen everything, like practically every single day he manifests things, and he's someone who's received all the transcendental science and knowledge within his heart. He's actually the acharya of our sampradaya, right? He's Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. He's the acharya of our sampradaya, and he's the same person who's come as Haridas Thakur. But before he came as Haridas Thakur, in Dwapar Yuga, he was bewildered, right? Uh, he was bewildered by Krishna when he heard that, oh, Aghasur has been killed, which is such a big demon. Even the demigods were fearing, Aghasur, and he wanted to see who has killed Aghasur. And then when he actually stole the boys and the calves, it was to actually test, to establish the fact that whether this person is some great personality, somebody very, very powerful, maybe even slightly more powerful than the other demigods, or is it the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So it was not, chalo for fun, let me try and do something, but it was rather with an intent to establish the real truth, right? Almost like a scientific experiment. He did not play around, but he was doing almost like a scientific experiment, thinking that if Krishna is bewildered by my Maya, right? Then he is not Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he's bewildered by my mystic energy, which means he's subordinate. If I am bewildered by his mystic energies, which means he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he's unaffected when I steal the boys and calves, that means he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's how he performed this experiment, and he was again bewildered by Krishna when he saw all the Vishnu forms. So even for Brahma, it's not easy to ascertain or understand who Krishna is. Or when he comes, he appears in front of him. Still, he's not able to identify this is the Supreme Personality of God, and he has to do this test. So what to speak of us? And that's the reason Krishna is giving information about himself in Bhagavad Gita to us so that we understand. And if this is the case with Brahma, that he's bewildered, so what to speak of the mundane material scholars? They're certainly bewildered. Right? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Ruji. Yes, so we can understand our position. If Brahmaji is bewildered by the activities of Supreme Lord, then what is the hope for us? But at the same time, we just need to understand Krishna. It's not possible to understand Krishna completely. It is unlimited, right? But as much as we can, and we need to, Krishna can reveal himself to us, provided we are actually, in practicing devotional service. So, go to next verse. Recite this verse now. Arjuna Uvacha
Arjuna Uvacha
Aparam Bhavato Janma
Param
Aparam
Aparam Bhavato Janma
Aparam Bhavato Janma
Param Janma Vivasvataha
Param
Katham Etad Vijaniyam
Katham Etad
Brahmado Proktavaniti.
Brahmado Proktavaniti.
Arjuna Uvacha
Arjuna Uvacha
Aparam Bhavato Janma
Aparam Bhavato Janma
Param Janma Vivasvataha
Param Janma Vivasvataha
Katham Etad Vijaniyam
Katham Etad Janiyam
Brahmado Proktavaniti.
Brahmado Proktavaniti.
Would someone like to recite the verse? Someone who did not recite the previous one? Anyone like to recite the verse? Please try.
Yes,
Okay.
Sudhima.
Yes.
Arjuna Vacha
Arjuna Vacha
Aparam Bhavato Janma
Aparam Bhavato Janma
Param Janma Vivasvataha
Param Janma Vivasvataha
Vijaniyam
Katham etat
Vamado Proktavanitiham.
Vamadro Proktavan.
Anyone else? Also like to read the translation.
Shall I, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Arjun said, the sun god Vivasvān is senior by birth to you. How I am to understand that is the beginning. You instructed this science to him.
Yeah. So we see that now Arjuna is asking a very important question, and it's a very natural question. Imagine if I told you that the other day we discussed Bhagavad Gita with the sun god. Would you believe me? So Krishna is saying that I gave this knowledge to the sun god Vivasvān. Arjuna is asking that how is it, Krishna, that you gave this knowledge to sun god? Sun god is senior to birth by birth, to both of us. As Arjuna and Krishna, both they are like almost the same age, contemporaries. So Arjuna is asking, how am I to understand that you actually instructed this science to sun god? He is senior by birth to us. So how is that possible? So here is a doubt which is there in Arjuna's mind, and he is putting this doubt across to Krishna. So actually, because Arjuna is an associate of the Supreme Lord, he is a devotee. There is no question of him doubting Krishna in any way. He actually understands Krishna in completely. He understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is what he will tell in the later chapters also, that I accept you as the Supreme Person. But however, he's putting this doubt across not because he's doubtful, but because so many other people in the world will question that how is it possible that Krishna instructed this knowledge to the sun god Vivasvān. So he's putting this doubt across for everyone else, so that once and for all, when Krishna himself speaks the absolute truth, he speaks about himself, then there will be no question of speculation by anyone else. He'll not leave any room for anyone else to try and pinpoint and say, this was not true. So, if we have to understand about Krishna, then we have the best person to understand about Krishna is Krishna himself. He can only tell about himself, who he is, and how this is possible that he actually gave this knowledge to the sun god Vivasvān. So, therefore, to clear everyone else's doubt, Arjuna is putting across this question. So, we'll read a little bit of the purport. So we'll read from somewhere in between here. Okay. So anyway, since Krishna is the authority accepted by all, Arjuna put this question before him in order that Krishna would describe himself without being depicted by the demons, who always try to distort him in a way understandable to the demons and their philosophers. It is necessary that everyone, for his own interest, know the science of Krishna. Therefore, when Krishna himself speaks about himself, it is auspicious for all the worlds. To the demons, such explanations by Krishna himself may appear to be strange, because the demons always study Krishna from their own standpoint. But those who are devotees heartily welcome the statements of Krishna when they are spoken by Krishna himself. The devotees will always worship such authoritative statements of Krishna because they are always eager to know more and more about him. The atheists who consider Krishna an ordinary man may in this way come to know that Krishna is supreme, that he is Sachidananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, and that he is transcendental, and that he is above the domination of the modes of material nature, and above the influence of time and space. A devotee of Krishna like Arjuna is undoubtedly above any misunderstanding of the transcendental version of Krishna. Arjuna's putting this question before the Lord is simply an attempt by the devotee to defy the atheistic attitude of persons who consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being, subject to the modes of material nature. So, Arjuna is putting this doubt forward to Krishna just so that there'll be no one else who will just pinpoint and say anything, and we'll be saved from the demoniac understanding of who Krishna is. Like Krishna himself speaks about him. It's very, very auspicious, because the devotee is always very, very eager to hear more and more about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is what we see across all the scriptures. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are so many conversations happening between the devotees. So whenever there is a question put across, okay, please describe the activities of the Lord, please describe the activities of the devotees of the Lord. Everyone is very happy. The speaker always says that, oh, you have put across a very, very question, and question is so good that it's actually going to benefit everyone. Why? Because Krishna Katha, or hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees, is actually very, very purifying. And that itself is like a medicine for this age of Kali Yuga. Hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, hearing about the pure devotees of the Lord and their activities. So just hearing this can actually free one from the fever of this material world. We are having a constant fever here, in this material world. We are enamored by so many things in this material world. There is like a material affection. There is distress, there is pain, there is anxiety. All of that, the solution to all of that is hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we just every day, read the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna's message is given, or we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the passing of the Supreme Lord is described, then that is like a medicine. So, like Prabhupada says, therefore devotee heartily welcomes the statements of Krishna because he's very eager to learn about him. So that is a natural mood of a devotee. So what we should also learn is that whenever there is an opportunity for us to hear about Krishna, wherever there is Krishna Katha happening, we should just try and forget everything and just go and sit and hear. That's all. We should just not think, oh, is this going to be good for me? Will I actually be benefited from this? Will I get to hear something very titillating to the mind and the intelligence or not? Just sit and hear. That is our process. We just sit and hear. And even if we don't have the taste to hear, that taste will actually gradually develop automatically just by giving this oral reception to the message of Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll read further. Prabhuji, anything to add here?
Oh, bro, sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
We'll go to the next verse. So Arjuna asked a question, now Krishna is going to reply. So we'll recite this verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Bahuni me vyatitani
बहूनि
Janmani tava charjana
जन्मानि तव चार्जुन
Tanyaham Veda Sarvani
अहं वेद सर्वाणि
Natvam Vetha Parantapa.
न त्वं वेत्थ परन्तप
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Bahuni me vyatitani
बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि
Janmani tava Arjuna
जन्मानि तव
Arjuna Tanyaham Veda Sarvani
अहं वेद सर्वाणि
Natvam Vetha Parantapa.
त्वं वेत्थ परन्तप
Would someone like to recite the verse?
Yes. Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Bahuni me vyatitani
Bahuni me vyatitani
Janmani tava charjana
Janmani Tavacharjana
Tanya aham veda sarvani
Tanyaham Veda Sarvani
Natvam veda parantapi.
Natvam Vetha Parantapa. Very nice, thank you. Anyone else would like to recite? If not, can someone read the translation?
The personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. O subduer of the enemy.
So Krishna is answering now. Arjuna's question, he asked that how is it that you gave this knowledge to Sun God? Sun God is so, senior to us. by birth. So Arjuna is saying, Krishna is saying that, both you and I have taken many births. The difference is that I can remember all of them, but you cannot. O subduer of the enemy, Parantapa. So it's important that Krishna addresses Arjuna as Parantapa, subduer of the enemy. He was very, very powerful, and he was actually going to defeat, everyone on the battlefield. So although he was a great, fighter, Arjuna, a great personality, yet the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entity is that the Supreme Lord remembers everything, of the past. He knows the present. He knows the future. So he's saying that both you and I have taken many births. I remember all what happened in the past, but you do not remember. And that is a position of us also, isn't it? Prabhupada explains that how for a living entity to remember even what they did at the same time the previous day is difficult. And if we asked, okay, it's 12:10 around, afternoon time, what did you do yesterday at this time? Do you remember? Does anyone recall very clearly what they were doing? We might be able to remember, but we might have to just think so much about, okay, what we were doing at this time, exactly the same time yesterday. So for a living entity to remember things of the past is difficult. And as the body changes, it grows. As there is a change in the body, automatically there is forgetfulness also. Right? So when there is complete change of the body, which means that living entity gives up the material body and accepts another material body, then there is complete forgetfulness of what happened in the previous life. Right? But for the Supreme Lord, Krishna, there is no difference between his body and him, because his body is transcendental. His body is not material like our body. For us, there is a distinction between the body and the soul. We are spirit souls, and we are now encased within this material body. So there is a difference between the body and who I am. But for the Supreme Lord, there is no such difference, because when he appears, we will see in the coming verses, Krishna will describe that how his birth, his appearance is actually transcendental. So he doesn't take birth normally like we do, forced by the material nature to be, to take birth in a particular situation, in a particular family. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose the situation we are born in. We don't choose the kind of body we will have. We just put into a certain situation. Whereas the Supreme Lord actually appears by his own supreme will, and his form is transcendental. So there is no difference between his body and him. It's all transcendental. There is nothing like a soul within and then there is a body externally for the Supreme Lord. It's one and the same. It's transcendental. So the Supreme Lord actually doesn't change anybody, because he is appearing always in his original transcendental form, and therefore there is also no forgetfulness of anything. Krishna remembers everything that happened millions and millions of lifetimes ago, and the living entity cannot remember all of that. So when Krishna spoke this knowledge to the sun god Vivasvān, so Arjuna was also present there in a different capacity at that time. However, Arjuna does not remember that this message was spoken by the Supreme Lord to the sun god Vivasvān, whereas Krishna very clearly remembers this, right? So Krishna actually takes many different forms, as is explained in the verse here from the Brahma Samhita. Advaitamachyuttamanadi anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha vedeshu durlabhamatma bhakto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So here it's saying that I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Right? Adyam Purana Purusham Nava Yovanam cha. Although he is the oldest person, Purana, very old, he is the creator. He was there before any one of us. Right? He is the oldest person, but still, Nava Yovanam cha. He is always fresh youth. You will never see Krishna becoming old. When this battlefield was arranged and Krishna was speaking this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, he was around 90 years old, Krishna. And you will never see that, Krishna was, he appeared, he had a child-like form, he grew, he became youth, but you will never see a photo of the picture of the Supreme Lord with beard or, gray hair. No, he is always youthful, like a 25-year-old boy. He never grows older than that. Nava Yovanam. Always appearing as a fresh youth. You'll never see a picture of Krishna like an old man. Why? Because he is having a transcendental body. So he never really grows old, although he's the oldest person. And then it says what? Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood even by the West Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. Just like Vijayamala Prabhu was giving the example and story of Brahmaji, how Brahmaji was also bewildered. How can this small boy kill a demon? Let me test. Let me see what is happening. What is wrong here? Indra, Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill, and Indra thought that maybe these Brajvasis, the people in Vrindavan, they are not performing sacrifice for pleasing me, and therefore he became very, very angry, and he thought that I'll teach them a lesson. He sent so many clouds, showers of rain. Every raindrop was like a pillar, falling down, and he wanted to devastate the whole Vrindavan, and just wash away all the cows, the brahmanas, everyone. He was so angry. So the clouds that are used at the time of destruction, of the whole creation, those clouds Indra sent to destroy Vrindavan. You can imagine. But then Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill, and just like an umbrella, it actually protected all the Vrajvasis, and everyone was very happy under the Govardhan hill. For 7 days, everyone was just engrossed and looking at this beautiful form of the Lord, lifting the Govardhan hill. So everyone was very, very happy, and there was like a festival happening, which one was explaining to us in Vrindavan. There was a festival happening there under under the Govardhan hill. Govardhan itself manifested so many different things for the pleasure of the devotees who were there under the hill. There were so many gardens and so many reservoirs of water that actually manifested on its own for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. There was like a festival happening under the hill. And so one devotee, they explained, not even dhoti of the devotees got wet, although Indra showered so much rain. So it did not even touch any devotee, any Vrajvasi in any way. So after 7 days, Indra came to his senses and he understood, oh, this is Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So he also got bewildered. Right? So like it says in this verse that Vedic scholars cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Who can understand the Supreme Lord is only the devotees. So this is transcendental science. It cannot be understood just by reading the book, trying to, do some intellectual exercise, just like we go to the gym and we do some exercise. People sometimes do intellectual exercises, trying to understand the absolute truth, but it's not possible to understand like that. Another verse in the Bhagavad Gita says that even if you travel at the speed of mind, you will never be able to reach an understanding of the absolute truth. It's not possible. So even if you travel at the speed of wind, it will not be possible to understand and reach the absolute truth. So only a devotee can understand. And then another verse, as it's quoted from the Brahma Samhita here, Rama Dimurti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nana Avatar Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumanyo Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Vajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, who is always situated in various incarnations such as Rama, Narasimha, and many sub-incarnations as well. But who is the original personality of Godhead known as Krishna and who incarnates personally also? But so here it's explained in this verse that actually there are so many incarnations of the Supreme Lord, like Rama, Narasimha, Varaha, and so on. And Krishna, but is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he incarnates personally also, which means Krishna, when he appeared 5,000 years ago, he appeared in his original form, two-handed form of Krishna, like it's there in the spiritual world. He appeared in that very same form when he appeared here in the Bhauma Vrindavan 5,000 years ago. So it's the original form of the Lord with which he appeared here in this material world. At the same time, he's never actually affected by any of the material qualities. He's never under the modes of material nature, that we should understand. So we'll read a little bit more from the purport. Krishna remembered acts Sorry. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that a living entity forgets everything uh, due to his change of body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Satchidananda body. He is Advaita, which means there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord himself explains in the following verse. It's very clear that Krishna actually appears in a transcendental body. Sometimes people might say, oh, Krishna was a great personality, a hero, a politician of the past. And that's all that they understand about the Lord. They may limit him to being like any other living entity, but that's not the case. Krishna actually appears in his transcendental form, in his original transcendental form, when he appears here on the material, on this planet. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think just finish and
Okay. There's a question, why does he say Lord and his body are the same? So why is the Lord's body and him same? Means that, like we said, so the living entity, there is a difference between uh, the body, which is made up of this material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the spirit soul, which is Satchidananda, is actually entrapped within this body. So when the body dies, the spirit soul actually accepts another body, and that by the laws of material nature, he'll accept a body which may be of an animal, a bird, a tree, or human being, whatever. So the living entity actually transmigrates, the spirit soul transmigrates from one body to another. But that is not the case for the Supreme Lord. When he appears in his original form. So there is nothing like a distinction between a material body for the Lord and spirit soul. The Supreme Soul, Krishna, there's no difference between his inside and outside. He comes as it is in his original form. So there is no distinction or difference between his body and the spirit soul. Okay, he is a supreme soul, and there is no difference as such. So, like when he appeared, actually, 5,000 years ago, when Devaki and Vasudeva were in the prison house. So when he appeared, he actually appeared, first, in the heart of Vasudeva, and from there he was transferred to the heart of Devaki, and then from there, after that, he appeared in the 400 form of Lord Vishnu, completely decorated with all ornaments, uh, and beautifully smiling and dressed. So we don't see any child appearing actually like that. A child appears crying without any clothes, but Krishna did not appear like that. His birth is transcendental. That is, again, we'll see in the next verse how his birth is actually transcendental. So his birth is not unlike our birth. He is not forced to accept the body like we are forced to accept the body. And there is no difference between his body as such. So there's no difference between the Lord and his body.
I think just a quick point. So there's this popular notion that okay, Krishna is the avatar of Vishnu, and especially in South India, if you go, I mean, Sri Vaishnava literature is also described. You describe Vishnu being superior to Krishna, but we hear and we understand from Srimad Bhagavatam and the other text how Krishna is the original source. He's like the original candle that has lit all the other candles, right? Of all the different expansions of Vishnu form. So they're all coming from him. They are complete in themselves, but still there is the original candle, who is Lord Shri Krishna, like that. So yeah, and there is a difference in Sri Vaishnava's scriptures also, for the fact that they have a different mood, and to support that Aishwarya Bhav mood, it's okay if it's given that Lord Shri Vishnu is the supreme, and uh, you know Krishna is actually an incarnation from Lord Vishnu. But otherwise, in all other sampradayas and scriptures, I think it's pretty clear that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Vijay. Bhagavatam says, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, Indrari Vyakalam Lokam, Vridanti Yuge Yuge. Krishna is the original form, and all other incarnations that are there are actually parts or parts and parts or parts of the Supreme Lord. So we'll recite the next verse. Ajopi san avyayatma,
अजोऽपि सन्निव्यक्त्यात्मा
Ajopi san avyayatma,
अजोऽपि
Bhutanameshwaropi san, Prakritim swamadhisthaya, Ambhavami atmamayaya. Ajopi san avyayatma, Bhutanameshwaropi san, Prakritim swamadhisthaya, Sambhavami atmamayaya. Would anyone like to recite the verse?
Arjuna?
Yeah. Someone reciting?
I will.
Yeah,
Prabhu.
please.
अजोऽपि सन्नव्ययात्मा
Ajopi san avyayatma,
भूतानामीश्वरोऽपि सन्
Bhutanameshwaropi san,
प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय
Prakritim swamadhisthaya,
सम्भवाम्यात्ममायया
Sambhavami atmamayaya. Would someone like to read the translation?
Yes, I will read, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please.
Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form.
Yes, so Krishna is saying that very thing we were discussing so far, that Krishna actually appears in every millennium, although he's unborn. He's saying that I am unborn and my body never deteriorates. I'm the Lord of all living entities, still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So Prabhupada explains that actually, although there is like a time period when Krishna appears, towards the end of the Dwapar Yuga, in a certain day of Brahma. So there is a certain thing when time period when actually Krishna appears. Yet he is not bound to appear at that very moment. Krishna is Swarat, so he can actually appear whenever he wishes to. And then we'll see in the coming verses how when there is a deterioration in practices of religion, then Krishna appears to re-establish religious principles. So he's saying that I appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Okay, so this is what we were discussing earlier also, that Krishna doesn't have a material form like us. So the problem is that people sometimes feel that Krishna is like in any other ordinary living entity, or he became God by doing some tapasya or something, or he is not like so important. We can discuss the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, but Krishna we can keep aside. But Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he appears in his original form. And why does he appear? We'll see all of that being described in the coming verses. So, what is the purpose of his appearance that Krishna is going to speak about now? We'll just read a little bit from the purport. So, factually, his appearance and disappearance, I'm reading from here, factually, his appearance and disappearance are like the sun's rising and moving before us and then disappearing from our sight, our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun has set. And when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always fixed in its position, but owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. Just like we see, sometimes when there is sunset, we say, oh, the sun is gone. When the sun rises, we say that, oh, the sun has risen and it's now morning. Actually, the sun is situated in its own, in a fixed place. But because of our defective vision, because we are moving, we see the sun is rising and setting. Same is the case with Krishna also. So Krishna actually appears and disappears just like the sun's rising and setting. So he may disappear from this world, but he will appear immediately in another place performing his pastimes. And Prabhupada explains that at every moment, just like there will be 6 a.m. sun rising here in Mumbai, and in 6:10 a.m. sun will rise somewhere else. 6:30 a.m. sun will rise somewhere else. So every moment actually, the sun is rising somewhere in the world. Similarly, Prabhupada explains that actually Krishna is appearing every moment, somewhere, in some part of the creation, and his pastimes are going on, continuously. So he's transcendental actually. So Krishna's appearance and disappearance are different from that of any living entity. We are actually forced to take a material body, and we cannot choose at the time of our death. At some point we'll have to actually give up this body. But Krishna's appearance and disappearance is not like that, like that of an ordinary living entity. So here then it says, in the Bhagavatam, he appears before his mother as Narayan with 4 hands and the decorations of the 6 kinds of all full opulences. His appearance in his original eternal form is his causeless mercy bestowed upon the living entities, so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as he is, and not on mental concoctions or imaginations, which the impersonalist wrongly thinks the Lord's forms to be. So why he appears, it's actually his mercy upon the living entities that he appears in his original form. So we know, okay, what does the Supreme Personality of Godhead look like? Sometimes when we say God or think of God, people may have a vague idea of what God is. People may imagine him to be like having a beard, an old man, very powerful man, the controller, he's punishing every living entity. So many different conceptions and ideas we may have. But actually, when Krishna appears in his original form, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we can actually meditate on his form. And we know, like it's described in the Brahma Samhita, Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayatакsham Bharhavitam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Andarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. He's actually playing his flute. He has a peacock feather. His beauty is such that it actually defeats millions and millions of cupids. So many cupids are there. They are so beautiful. Millions and millions of cupids actually stand like nothing in front of the Supreme Lord. Krishna is actually so beautiful. So we are actually attracted to anyone in this world. If you see, there is a superstar, a film star, we get attracted immediately. We feel, oh, they're so beautiful. There is some rich person, we get attracted. Oh, he's a very rich person. Oh, a very famous person. Oh, very strong person. So we get attracted to all these different opulences when we see, people displaying such opulences even in this world. We get immediately attracted to such people. But then just imagine Krishna is the source of all such opulences. And these people, an actor is there, playing a part in, a role in a film. We may be attracted to them for their looks or their acting. But then when someone has to sing, the actor doesn't sing. There is another singer who's, singing from behind, and the actor is just lip syncing, right? Why? Because the actor doesn't have a good voice. He may look good, but doesn't have a good voice. Right? So he has one opulence, but not all the opulence, and that too not in full. But when Krishna appears, he actually comes in all, displaying all his opulences. So what are the 6 opulences? Anyone knows? What are the 6 opulences? The word Bhagavan, yes. What are the opulences? Anyone? 6 opulences. Can anyone name any of them?
Beauty, wealth, knowledge.
Wealth, knowledge, very good.
Beauty.
Yeah, beauty, wealth, knowledge.
Yes.
Is it strength?
Sorry, what is that?
Strength.
Strength, yes, strength. 2 more.
Country collector, yes.
Fame,
Fame, yes, very nice.
beauty, knowledge, fame,
Renunciation.
Renunciation, yes, right. Fame, wealth, strength, knowledge, beauty, renunciation. These are 6 opulences. And when Krishna appears, he actually is displaying all these 6 opulences. So he's the most beautiful person in the world. He is the strongest person. He is the most renounced. He is the most famous. He is the most knowledgeable. How can someone not be attracted to the Supreme Lord? Just think about it. We get attracted to some people in this world displaying some little opulences in a very minute quantity. How can one not be attracted to the Supreme Lord who is actually displaying all these opulences, in full, all 6 opulences in full? There's no more superior to the Lord in any of these opulences. So that's why Prabhupada is saying here that it's actually his causeless mercy bestowed on the living entities, because now the living entity can actually see who the Supreme Personality of God is, and then develop that loving relationship. So we are always looking for some kind of relationship in this world which will actually satisfy us. We're literally hankering for that. We think that we're incomplete, some relationship will make me complete. And then we try and look for that perfection in so many different relationships in our lives. But 2 incompletes will not make a complete. That relationship, when it's established with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will actually satisfy the living entity. So, therefore, the beautiful form of the Lord is described, and so therefore there is no room for anyone to speculate how the Supreme Lord looks. So the complete description is given of what the Supreme Lord looks like, what are his activities, what are his pastimes, who his friends are, who his mother is, how does he behave, what does he say, how does he act. Everything is described in the Vedic scriptures. In different other religions, there will be some mention of the Supreme Lord as a controller, the creator, but not so much description about who he is, his name, his pastimes, his activities, where he stays, what he likes to do. But all these descriptions are given in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures. So when we get this information, automatically the attraction for the Supreme Lord will manifest within the heart, because it's very natural for the living entity to be attracted. But just because now we are covered with so many impurities, we don't naturally feel that attraction. But as we chant the holy names of the Lord and we engage in hearing about the Supreme Lord, like we discussed earlier, devotee is very anxious to hear about the Supreme Lord and his activities. Then the natural attraction will manifest within the heart. Okay. So all that we need to do is hear Krishna Katha, chant the holy names, and then that will purify us, and then we'll develop that attraction for the Supreme Lord. So he is the Lord of all living entities because he performs wonderful and superhuman activities while he is on this earth. Therefore, the Lord is always the same absolute truth and is without differentiation between his form and self, or between his quality and body. A question may now be raised as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this world. This is explained in the next verse. It's till 35. Luji, you would like to add anything?
I have a lot to add, but I'm just worried about the time.
Maybe we can add and then we'll stop there also, because we'll take, I think, the next verses next one.
Okay, so I think since you were so nicely describing about the beauty of the Lord, the obvious verses came to mind. How Shukdev Goswami, who was a liberated soul, so as soon as he was born, first of all, he was not willing to be born, right? And for 16 years, he was in the womb of his mother. And when he came out as a 16-year-old boy, as soon as he came out, he started walking away. And Srila Vyasadev, he had been praying for someone who's qualified to actually receive and deliver Bhagavatam to the world. And he knew Shukdev Goswami is someone who's already liberated. And in fact, Krishna personally had to come and assure Shukdev Goswami that you won't be touched by Maya. So please come out. Because he was afraid that as soon as I come out of the womb, I'll be affected by Maya. So, he started walking away and Vyasadeva was running behind him, trying to call him, but he did not even turn and look back once. And there's an entire beautiful section in Bhagavatam describing this particular pastime in detail. And then to get him back, because he had to give him Srimad Bhagavatam, what Vyasadeva did was he taught a few verses to different disciples who would go in the forest to collect wood and other things. So while they were collecting wood or doing other chores, they would sing these verses which was taught by Vyasadeva. So Shukdev Goswami was meditating on the impersonal Brahman, say in the forest, and he suddenly heard these verses sung by these different disciples, and two verses specifically caught his attention. One verse was describing the beauty of the Lord, and the other was describing the mercy of the Lord. So the verse describing the beauty of the Lord, since we're talking about the beauty of the Lord, is Baraha Pidam Natavar Vapu Karanayo Karnikaram Vipravasa Kanaka Kapisham Vaijayanti Chamalyam Randhan Venu Adar Sudaya Pura and Gopavindai Vrindaranya Swapadaramanam Pravishat Gita Gita. So the description goes Baraha Pidam Natavar Vapu. So Natavar means he's like an actor on the stage. Natavar, he's the expert in dancing and acting. And he has a peacock feather on his forehead, on his head. So Baraha Pidam Natavar Vapu Karnayo Karnikaram. He actually places a karnikar flower, which is yellow color. So Krishna's bodily color or luster is dark bluish, like the rainy cloud, and he keeps a nice yellow color flower on the top of his ear on one side, and he keeps shifting from one side to the other ear, from this ear to the other ear, like that. Vipravasha Kanaka Kapisham. So his dhoti is actually golden color, but it's also described like it looks like lightning, right? It's shining like lightning. Vaijayanti Chamalya. He wears Vaijayanti Mala, which is made of 5 types of forest flowers, right? Vaijayanti Mala also means, somebody who is victorious. It's actually given to such a person. So Krishna is always victorious, right? So Vaijayanti Chamalya. Randhran Venu Adara Sudaya. And he plays on his flute, right? Pura and Gopa Vrindai. And he's surrounded by his Gopa friends. And he's going in the forest. Vrindaranya Swapada Ramanam Pravishad Gita Gita. So he has one hand on the shoulder of one friend, and he's walking as if he's dancing, and he's uh, putting his lotus feet on the land of Vrindavan, the dust of Vrindavan, leaving behind his footprints, which are marked with different symbols. Ravishad Girta Kirta. And all his friends who are with him, they are glorifying different activities of Krishna, what wonderful pastimes he performed in the forest that day. So that's the description of Krishna's beauty. And then the other shloka talks about his mercy. So Sukdev Goswami, who's actually a liberated soul, even he is very, very attracted just by hearing these verses. And he goes up to the disciples and asks, where did you learn this from? I want to know. And then they take him to Vyasdev, and Vyasdev says, okay, sit, my son. Not just these 2 verses, there are 18,000 verses now. So Sukdev Goswami is really happy. And that we also, through the same channel, we also receive Srimad Bhagavatam. That's about the beauty of the Lord. And just one more point there. So Madhurya Kadambini describes how the Lord is so beautiful, even as Vishnu form. What to speak of Krishna? So even as his Vishnu form, if he appears, say for example, in front of you, our senses cannot handle it, right? It's like you're trying to capture an ocean in a small container, right? So it's over flooded. So that's what happens to our senses when Krishna appears or the Lord Vishnu appears in front of us. Our senses are overwhelmed. They are oversatiated, right? And therefore, as a natural result, the devotee, the senses cannot handle it, and the devotee faints. In fact, it is described how Dhruv Maharaj, when he saw Lord Vishnu, whom he was meditating, in his heart, when he appeared in front of him, Dhruv Maharaj again and again fainted because it's too much for the senses to handle. So much beauty, right? Even the story of Gokumar, when he sees Krishna, he faints. So he's unlimitedly beautiful. We cannot imagine. And the comparison is given to lotus just so that we have some reference point. Otherwise, he's millions and trillions times more beautiful than lotus. His eyes are, Namaha Pankaj Nabhaya, Namaha Pankaj Malini, Namaha Pankaj Netraya, right? So we are giving these examples because that's the most beautiful example in front of us. But he's so much more, right? Our senses cannot handle so much more, right? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for those beautiful description of the form of the Lord. So devotee actually relishes, just like Prabhuji is describing so beautifully the form of the Lord. So he, devotee actually relishes hearing about the form of the Lord, his pastimes, remembering them, meditating upon them, and he's completely happy. Although, like Prabhuji was saying, we cannot actually hold the form of the Lord. He's just so beautiful. So just by hearing, it's actually satisfies deep within the heart of every living entity when we actually hear about the Lord. So, and for that very purpose, Krishna appears so that we have an understanding of who the Supreme Lord is. And when we get attracted to Him, we will no longer want to remain in this material world. Although yet, we'll see in the coming verses how a living entity actually has so many allurements and other things in this world that he has probably sometimes no time to even think. And he tries to remain satisfied in this world only, although suffering so much.
Just to add a few more points there. So the devotee basically, we actually get to see Krishna through hearing. Although we may go and see the form of the Lord in the temple, yes, He is there, but our senses are not purified. It says again in Brahma Samhita, Premanjana, Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokya. You need the eyes anointed with the salve of love to be able to see Krishna and appreciate His form. So we actually see the Lord through hearing, and therefore, when you read about so many other devotees, and even in Bhagavatam, most of the devotees are hearing from someone. Why? Because this is the easiest and most potent form to see the Lord. Right? And the more and more you hear, and suddenly one day manifest in front of you, because by then you'll have developed spiritual eyes and not material eyes. So the route or the channel to actually spiritualize all our senses is our ear. If we give good oral reception, to the descriptions and talks about the Lord, then yes, all the other senses can very quickly be purified and spiritualized.
Thank you very much, Ruji. Any questions or comments anyone has? There was a question earlier, asking to speak about Vrindavan. We'll take any questions first, otherwise Vijay Malpur will tell us more about Vrindavan.
I just want to ask you, like
Yes.
my children ask me, have you seen Krishna? When I talk about Krishna, Lord Krishna, to my children or my grandchildren, they ask me, have you seen? Have you seen Lord Krishna? So what do I say?
Prabhuji?
You can answer this, Prabhu.
So Krishna, just like the form of the Lord is described in the Vedic scriptures, so when we see the deity form of the Lord in the temple, Prabhupada explains actually that's not different from the Supreme Lord Himself. So when we worshipping the deity in the temple, that is Krishna Himself, present there, and therefore His form is not actually carved out of some imagination or concoction. So as is described in the Vedic scriptures, His form is there, and there is Prana Pratishtha, where the Lord is actually invited to reside in the deity form. So the deity form of the Lord is actually not different from the Supreme Lord Himself. So therefore, when we are going to temple and seeing Krishna, we are actually seeing Krishna also. At the same time, when we are chanting the holiness of the Lord, that actually also is non-different from the Supreme Lord. So we are actually associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. So in one sense, one just has to develop a vision to see the Lord. And as one progresses in devotional service, he sees the Lord everywhere, practically. Wherever he goes, he's just seeing the Supreme Lord only. Like Rudy was saying, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. So, eyes, when they are actually anointed with love, then he's seeing the Lord. Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. The devotees are actually seeing the Lord present in the heart, always. How they are able to see? Because their eyes are anointed with love for the Supreme Lord. So, have we seen the Lord? Yes, we are actually seeing. Even this manifestation of this whole creation, the beauty in this world, Krishna describes in the later chapters in Bhagavad Gita, that how actually everything is emanating from Him, even this whole material creation. And He is behind this creation. Just like, the pearls are, there on a thread. We don't see the thread, but we see the pearls in a necklace. But how are the pearls together? Because there is a thread running through it. Similarly, this whole cosmic manifestation, the whole creation is actually in order, it's working. Why and how? Because there's a Supreme Lord actually behind it, and it's resting on the Supreme Lord's energy. And that is why everything is put in order. So we are actually seeing Krishna everywhere in that sense also. Because when one sees, this creation, how it's working so wonderfully. Krishna says in the Bhagavatam also, there's a verse which says that it's out of the fear of the Supreme Lord that the sun rises. It's out of the fear of the Lord that all of these seasons, everything is working in order. In Bhagavad Gita also that comes up. So how do we see everything in order? Krishna says, Maya Dakshina Prakriti. All material nature is actually working under my direction. That is also seeing the Supreme Lord. Right? So it's a question of realization. As we progress in bhakti, the more we'll be able to see the form of Lord everywhere practically. So are we seeing? Yes, we are seeing. Even for the materialistic person, Krishna describes in the later chapters how to see the Lord, in so many different opulences.
Thank you so much. Wonderful explanation.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Just a quick
Yes,
comment
Vijay.
to Mataji's question.
Yes, Vijay.
So just like you can actually consider the deity form of the deity form of the Lord Krishna accepts so that you can serve him. So what you can experience through your eyes, he accepts that kind of a form so that you can serve him. So he is personally there. It's not even that they are non-different. It is Krishna. Simple. It is Krishna standing there. Yeah. And the other example that comes is just like radio waves are everywhere, but you're not able to see, right? So Krishna in one of his forms is everywhere, as Paramatma in every atom, right? But not able to see him. But then you have a television set or a mobile phone which receives those signals and projects the image on the screen. So similarly, these DT forms are the same Supreme Lord manifesting in a way that you can physically interact with and appreciate.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Puji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. So thank you. Proj, you like to lead Kirtan?
Uh,
2 minutes.
okay. I'll just get my medal.
So it's the last few days of Kartik. If you have not visited temple yet, you must this weekend and attend the Damodarashtakam prayers, offer lamp to the Lord in the temple. It's happening both times in morning and evening, morning 7:30 as well as evening 7:30. So if you happen to come this weekend, please let us know. It's the last few days, and I believe next week the month will already be over. And it's also Ekadashi on Monday. So again, auspicious because Ekadashi of Kartik month. So even
Also,
that.
yeah.
Prabhuji, I just want to ask you. There is a Krishna temple close to my house. So I visit there almost every day and I do offer lamps. Is it necessary to come to Juhu temple and worship, or is it okay if I do it here?
You can visit there. That's completely good. I mean, if you're
That's
visiting
Krishna
the temple
temple.
close
Yeah,
by, yes,
Krishna
Krishna temple,
temple.
you can visit there and offer a lamb there. If once in a while you happen to, you can visit Jhu, will be nice. It's a different atmosphere with so many devotees coming together, and also we recite Damodarashtakam. So if you haven't visited in the whole Kartik month, I would suggest that once during this month you can try and visit. and carry that with you, and then whenever you can, then visit the nearby temple.
Just a quick thought on that. So actually, the idea of even visiting holy places is to actually hear from the devotees there, more than just seeing the different pastime places or taking dips in the holy river. The primary agenda or the main idea is to actually uh, associate and hear with devotees from that place, because they are the ones who are carrying the mood and the consciousness of that place, and you'll get that once you associate with them or hear from them. So that's the idea. uh, and one more quick announcement. So I think we'll be planning a program at Priyanka Mataji's house the next Saturday, or if Sunday is preferred for everyone, we can keep it on Sunday also. So you all can you know share your preference if Saturday works better for you to physically come down and participate, or Sunday is more suitable. So Prabhuji, how should we take that poll?
Okay, they can write in chat box here, since
Will it be in the morning or evening?
Uh, we can
evening, I think it might suit most people.
yeah,
We can keep it in morning as well.
maybe what we can do is we can keep it somewhere around late afternoon kind of a thing, 4 to 5 or maybe 5 to 7 or something, so that it's suitable to come and go back as well.
So Saturday, is everyone okay with Saturday? Because we
Where
have the
does she
session on
reside? Where does she reside?
Villepala, yeah? Villepala.
Priyanka Mataji, you can also share your preference. It's your house.
Prabhuji, I'm okay any day.
Okay, and any time.
Evening is better because morning a bit rush
Okay,
at home. So
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock.
yeah, 4, 5.
Okay, great.
But if majority are okay for morning, we are okay with morning also. If it's convenient for, let's see what majority says.
So please share your preference and please do come. Right? It's
Yeah, sure.
it's been like almost 2 years of online.
Yes.
Not just us, but in general, I'm sure we are already saturated with the online experience now. So let's come together, and the whole atmosphere is really different when you physically associate here, chant together. It will be really nice.
Yes, absolutely. Prabhuji.
Okay, so short kirtan, and since we spoke of Damodarashtakam, we'll take that tune. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौर